Losing a bid teaches you a lot. I think back at a lot of the different things that I've lost on in how it informs you. It's really important. Maybe sometimes you weren't as polished in your delivery, or you didn't do enough groundwork on the front end so that you could really be knowledgeable about the questions. As a lot of it is just your own confidence in making sure that you really know your numbers and what the client goal is, and really being able to listen. Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today's Thursday Q&A is, the first one was, how do you handle losing a bid? I feel like I have a lot of experience in this one, having just lost a bid last week. So I will just tell you a little bit about it. And I guess how I, over the years, have sort of figured out how, like, what do you do after you lose a bid? So in this particular case, a designer friend of ours that we've worked with in the past had referred us to a client, and it was in a great location. The budget was fine. The scope of the project was actually smaller, but just given the timing, they were leaving out of the country for several months. It was kind of a perfect thing to get in, do a nice main floor remodel, and in a great part of town. Really nice couple. So I met with them a few times. Actually, in the very beginning, it was tough because they travel internationally a lot, and my schedule was pretty busy with some travel as well. And so we ended up getting into a multiple bid situation where there was two other builders involved, and I think I was the last one to meet with them. Anyway, long story short, I think we were in the top two, and they ended up going with another firm, very good firm, friends with the owner, and good job to them. I sent that owner a text of just basically giving him a clap and saying, well done, you deserve it, kind of thing. But, it stung. It was a job I really wanted. It was in a phenomenal location. We had done probably four other big projects on that street, actually. And it was also something we really needed at the time. So it was a kind of a bittersweet. Of course, you find out on a Friday. Everything's on a Friday. And I was just kind of going through my mind over the weekend, what could I have done differently? Being the first in is really important. So I think, in hindsight for me on this one, if I could somehow have made it work earlier on in the schedule, nobody got the design work up front, but the earlier in and the way you're communicating is really important. I think that first impression, that first person you meet sort of sets the standard. And it can be a double-edged sword. Obviously, if the first person they meet isn't great, and then they meet, your company, like, obviously, and it makes you look really good. And so either way, I think being first in I think I prefer to be first in. I think I've heard someone in corporate say they want to be the first in or the last one in, and you don't want to be the middle one. And so I don't think you get to choose. You just more observations. So, in the beginning, when we did kind of a soft bid, they asked us what would it cost. Well, we hadn't done the design. We hadn't done really any work. It was just, what do I think it's going to cost? And so I worked up a sworn construction statement the best I could with no design, not knowing, obviously we knew what the scope was going to be, but, without actually hard bidding it, it's not that easy. I mean, years of experience get you pretty close. And I'd gone pretty high because I know a lot of times our homeowners, especially in affluent areas, they do not like change orders. Right now, the economy is very much price based, and people really, really have sharpened pencils. There's obviously been some downward pressure on pricing, at least on labor. I know materials still seem to be up, but evidently it's us meeting expectations of our clients. So anyway, what I was very fortunate to do is I asked the client after she called me and said, your bid is quite a bit higher than everybody else. She's like, we like you a lot. And I said, well, could I come in and meet with you and we can just work side by side? That's one of the things that I like to do, so that I can walk them through exactly how I came to that price. So she said yes. So I met with her and just walked through her line by line. And we probably cut, $80,000 out of a, estimated, I don't even remember now, $350,000 remodel budget. And a lot of it was just high expectations. And she could see pretty quickly that I was erring on the side of it being high, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I was just explaining to her, this is a cost plus contract. Anything you don't use goes down. And I had just framed up the question of saying, like, well, a lot of our clients don't like change orders. And if anything, getting a bunch of credits feels really good. And so the only way to do that, obviously, is to bid pretty strong. And so we brought it down to where she was comfortable. She said, now you're right in line with everybody else. You're the only firm that's also working with an architect. The other one did did their interior design, architecture design all in house. And at the end of the day, we lost it. And her comment was, it was because that she felt the communication was going to be smoother if it was all in house. And I tried to get some clarification on that. I'd like to know more. I guess the point in bringing this up is even when you lose, I think it's important to understand how and why you lost. And sometimes I'm okay with a homeowner saying, we just felt like the other person was a better fit. That's okay. That's a reasonable expectation or a reasonable response. Sometimes there is no clear right or wrong. This is who I feel comfortable with. Of course, it hurts when, you want to be the one they're comfortable with and they say no. And so, of course, you want to end it on a classy note and, say thank you for the opportunity, appreciate, the ability to meet with you. You're a delightful couple. We'd love to do future work with you if we can, and and leave it at that. One thing that another builder recently said, and this is actually when things go well, but actually I think it's appropriate even now. I think no one really likes telling people that they're not going with them. And there's probably that small window of time I'm thinking about this only right now, is I should have asked for a referral. Do you know of anybody else that is looking to remodel? There's a strong sense of, I don't know if it's disappointment. I mean, nobody likes to disappoint people, so I guess it is disappointment. I bet if when you lose a job, you ask for a referral, especially if it's a coin flip that could have gone either way. It'd be interesting to see if you could actually get referrals from people that you've lost jobs to. And I have actually had that happen before, where I've had clients say, you know what, we will recommend you to our families and friends. And I didn't say this, but then after they hang up the phone call, you're kind of like, it seems hard to understand, because in one sense they're not choosing you, but they're saying we'd really recommend you to our family and friends. Well, why wouldn't you recommend the company that you just went forward with? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe someone else can DM us. I think that'd be interesting to know, or if that's just a human nature thing. We don't want people, we know that we work with a lot of good people, and I think that's true. Maybe this is the same way of, like, choosing one electrician over another, or one cabinet shop over another. It's not, you have a relationship with one and then you go forward with that one. And, if you work with multiple vendors, you'd like to have, some reasons why. And hopefully it's not always about price. I mean, I think it's really important, especially if your value statement is not about price. Hopefully what you're choosing in your trade partner base is also not about price. I don't know. I guess I have to think about that, just thinking out loud. If I was to go back and make certain decisions, most of the time it seems like it's communication, it's relationship, it's how you feel working with that team member. And a lot of it just is, do you like working with them? Are they quality? Do they show up? And so all the sort of intangibles. I mean, pricing still has to be close, but I've picked many times. Oftentimes I pick the bid that is slightly higher than the lowest bid, because I know what I'm going to get and I know the relationship. It's more important. And, if you're always picking the lowest price, there is a value statement to that. And, at least the homes that I provide and the work we do, is we're not a low cost provider. So if I'm aligning myself with only the people that do the most inexpensive work, at some point it's going to affect my brand. And so anyway, I've kind of gone off the question a little bit here, but I think it's important when you end it to end it well. And one of my favorite quotes is the art of making a point without making an enemy. And so I think, sometimes I've sent a thank you gift to people I've lost before, like a handwritten card, like, thank you for the opportunity. And I think it's just a really classy gesture. And we all lose. I don't think any of us can get better without losing. I look back, oh man, probably 2016 or 17, I designed a really big home, and the client went with another very reputable builder, and they built a beautiful home. And I still stay in touch with them. They're always following us on Instagram, all those types of things. But at the time, that other builder had an architect in house. They had a much fancier office, and I think for them, they knew we could do the work, but they sort of wanted, in the beginning anyway, as I recall it, they wanted some free design work. And, well, I don't have architects in house. I think it's important to have multiple relationships that you're cultivating. And so for me, it was important that I not have architecture in house, because I don't want to have it all under one roof. But in this case, it came back to bite me a little bit. This episode is brought to you by Helmuth & Johnson, a top Minnesota law firm representing clients ranging from individuals to emerging startups and multinational Fortune 500 companies. Focusing on transactional law, litigation, and appeals, Helmuth & Johnson attorneys are leaders in their field. David Helmuth and Chad Johnson joined forces 30 years ago in 1994 with the goal of creating a premier law firm capable of handling complex and challenging cases efficiently and effectively. Today, Helmuth and Johnson rank among the top 15 largest law firms in Minnesota with more than 70 Twin City lawyers serving clients in more than 30 legal practice areas. They offer a full suite of legal services to clients without sacrificing their original commitment to providing responsive and affordable legal representation. To learn more, head to our website, thecuriousbulderpodcast.com, or to their website at www.hjlawfirm.com. So I know losing a bid teaches you a lot. I think back at a lot of the different things that I've lost on in how it informs you. It's really important. Maybe sometimes you weren't as polished in your delivery, or you didn't do enough groundwork on the front end so that you could really be knowledgeable about the questions. A lot of it is just your own confidence in making sure that you really know your numbers and what the client goal is, and really being able to listen. So anyway, I think we have so much to learn from how we lose jobs that it can inform, what we do going forward. And hopefully those clients come back. They realize like, wow, and I think stay in touch with them. I think when you lose doesn't really help you sometimes in the short term. I've had jobs where they've gone to another builder, and then you hear later down the grapevine, they're like, man, we really should have gone with you after all. And it's like, it feels somewhat validating, but doesn't really put bread on the table. At that point, it's kind of like a moral victory, and that doesn't help a whole lot, other than, people make choices all the time. And I think, reflecting as a business, I don't always make the right choice. And so I think we all, homeowners as well, can learn from their choices. And so I think just making sure that you're ending it in a very classy way, and you're keeping communication and dialogue open. And I think that's really all you can do, because the opposite of that would be, to be bitter or terse or cold or spiteful. I mean, none of those things are going to reflect, good on your brand. It's obvious to say, when you've had some time to cool down, but obviously losing, any entrepreneur is likely to be competitive, and nobody likes to lose. Sometimes I wonder that if, when we lose a project, it isn't for the best. And I think sometimes, the sooner we identify our ideal client, the better it is for us as a company and for them as a client. I think the ones that sting the most is not the ones where you realize like, hey, we're not a good fit. The ones that sting the most are the ones where you're like, actually, they're a great fit and I really want to work for them. And then they choose someone else. Those ones hurt the most. We've had actually, oh man, I just thought of another one I lost this summer. We had a long, probably 5-6 year relationship with somebody, and they went with a different company, and not a lot of reason why. That was probably the most painful one of my career, frankly. And that one is the hardest, because it's a project, an architect that I really wanted to work with, and they went somewhere else. And so sometimes it's really, you have to fight to make sure that you maintain who you are, despite how you feel, and understand that sometimes things do happen for a reason. And keep your chin up and keep going. Well, that's enough about losing. Let's talk about winning. The second part of the next question was, how are you planning on doing your year-end planning? And how do you forecast for the next year? And so I don't really have a tried and true way on this. Just, I can tell you what I'm going to do this year, and I've done it the last couple of years. So I find, I've spoken a lot on the podcast about, just getting out into nature, exercising, doing some camping trips, whatever it is to sort of re-energize your creativity. But I think in December this year, I think I did it last year too, I try really hard not to make any appointments in the month of December, between just the holidays and team needs, and really just trying not to overwhelm yourself. Otherwise, the holidays don't get restful. So I think that for me is really going to help me be energized going into 25. And I have a lot of things going on right now that I'm really excited about. I think 25 is going to be a great year. I think 24 was a really, really down year. I've talked to a lot of companies that are very, very down. I mean, we're maybe 50% down. I'm really excited for kind of an upturn, and I feel like it's coming. I feel like there's still a strong demand for building. I know, like in our Minneapolis market, I keep hearing stats like we're 100,000 homes short of what we need. And we have a number of clients that are kind of sitting on the fence. I've got 3 pretty big projects that are just kind of sitting. I don't think they even know what they're waiting for, but sure shooting, they're all going to go at the same time. And now I'm going to have to hire some people, which I guess is a problem I'd rather have than letting people go. That's never really that enjoyable. But for planning, I've got a couple days marked off, a couple half days, and then I actually have a day and a half marked up. I used to do this. My dad was a builder, interviewed him last year. My dad's name is David. And he loves it as someone who built for 30 years. I love it because I just get to spend some time with my dad, and he loves talking business, and so do I. And so probably 12, 13 years ago, we went up to Duluth, Minnesota, and spent 2 days at this little Italian restaurant, had a like paper table on it. And we just had pens and we literally just wrote out business plans while we were having dinner. And we stayed there for like 3, 4 hours. I mean, we had a ball. And I should see if I still have that. I think I kept that. Anyway, we're going to go up there in the middle of December. My dad and I just take a day and a half off, turn off the phone, put the auto email responder on saying, we're in a planning session, and really just think about the business. It's something I don't do nearly enough. I know I've mentioned this before, Caleb McDonald up out of Toronto does a really good job of this. He does it monthly where he kind of gets away and just spends a day, at a favorite coffee shop, take a train in downtown and just work on his business. I think that's really smart. I keep sharing that story because I'm really inspired by it and it's something that I want to do. And so I'm going to just, spend a day and a half thinking about writing down, having kind of that forced time to write down your ideas, your business plan, your goals, set some 3-year, 4-year, 5-year goals out there. It's kind of interesting because I have a clear path and a clear picture of what I want the Curious Builder brand to be. And I probably have a less clear vision of what I want Mark Williams to be. And now I'd say the thought and time I've put into the Curious Builder has really helped me clarify my goals for Mark Williams Custom Homes. And so I'm really excited to sit down and have these two companies and kind of really think about what do the next couple of years look like. We're doing our first spec home next year in 12 years. It's been a long time. And so actually more than that. Wow, 14 years, 15 years. It's been a long time since I've done a spec home. And so I'm really, really excited working with a branding company. I won't talk too much about it on this podcast, but probably the next 30 days, I'll talk a little bit about it as we start to tease about it on social media and on our website. But I'm really, really energized to really design and build a home that's very on brand for who we are and how we've transformed as a company. And really trying to attract a buyer with the philosophy of what we're going to be, how we're going to design this house and how we're going to build it. So I'm very energized of what that looks like. And so, plus I just love making lists. It's fun. And so I think in this case, having my dad, who's been a business owner for, multiple decades up there to run some ideas by, and while he's been retired now for 25 years, he was retired before I started. I think it's sometimes helpful to have other entrepreneurs and get kind of their feedback, because I think sometimes what makes us really good is, you get passionate about what you're doing and you get really excited. And I'm not saying you need people around you to pop your energy balloon, and not that my dad does that, but having somebody that helps ground you or says, hey, that idea is getting pretty grandiose, or how are you going to pay for that? Or, if you design a house that the market doesn't want, that's all well and good, but how are you going to sell it? And so really having someone that you can bounce ideas off that knows the business, and sometimes having people that know nothing about the business is helpful too. I think it's sometimes important to take your plans of what you want to do as a company and run it by people that are entrepreneurs in totally different spaces. Because, I've often contended that most businesses are very similar. There's probably, a 70% likeness between all businesses, and it's the 30% that's kind of the difference maker. I mean, you have to hire, fire, market, sales, all those things like any business. I don't care if you're selling shoes or computers or cameras, notebooks, socks, hats, gym memberships, houses, cars. I mean, you have to do a lot of the same things. And so I think that's what makes business podcasts really interesting, is that it's a lot, even though we're talking about building, a lot of these relationship things that we're discussing can apply broadly to any business. And so that's something that I really enjoy, talking to any business owner about what they're doing. And, one of the things that I need to be mindful of just having the Curious Builder podcast is that, I have builders on the podcast, and I think I do like diversity. And I think anybody that knows me or that's probably tuning this to show probably likes diversity too, because, we don't interview just builders. We've got builders, designers, architects, commercial space, residential space, website designers, brand managers, lawyers. I mean, we're going to cover tons of different bases, because I do feel like, well, for one, variety is the spice of life. But second, I think that the more variety you have, the more you can take these ideas and apply them, to your business. And hopefully that can be a differentiator for your business and what you want to do. So for everyone that's out there looking to sit down, I would encourage you to sit down for a day or two, turn off your phone, turn off your email, and really just, write down what went well, what didn't go well, and what do you want to do for the next couple of years. Have a great rest of your week. And thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.